What I'm about to share with you is a pretty powerful event that took place in my life. It's a little bit graphic, but to convey the full message, I feel that it needs to be. It involves suicide, and the suicide of a good friend of mine in college. I was a sophomore at Whitworth College, and I was a resident assistant. The year had kicked off, and I was loving being an RA. I was loving being a part of the Whitworth College community. I was loving being in the Errand Hall dorm that I was in, and everything was just off to the beginning of a banner year. We rolled into October and the day after homecoming, and for weeks of time before the school year actually started, my friend Charlie and I were getting to be closer and closer, and we were both there early, him for football, me for being the resident assistant in my training, and then we were just becoming so close. We were having phenomenal conversations about God and about life and all sorts of things. And then during that weekend of homecoming, I know that Charlie didn't have a date to go, and I knew it weighed on him a little bit, but I had no idea of the depth of darkness and the depth of pain of the place Charlie was actually at. I remember on this evening being in bed already. It was pretty early though. It was probably 8:30 at night. Being in bed but just reading and studying. It was October 7th. And I remember Charlie's roommate banging on my door and saying, "You gotta help me with Charlie." And I threw my bathrobe on and I ran down the hall through a lounge into Charlie's room. And Charlie had hung himself from his bed with his choke chain weight belt. And I helped John lift the body of my good friend out of his noose. He was a big lineman, his cold, heavy, dead body, pale, bluish gray. I had to help lay him down on the floor. And I knew right then and there that Charlie was gone. And I knew it didn't matter what happened. He was dead. And I remember the EMTs coming because John had already called them. And I remember going outside of the room because I couldn't stay there. And sitting in the hallway with my head down in complete shock, disbelief, and feeling like my heart had just been ripped open and crushed, stomped on. I don't know. I was in such a place of pain, and I remember friends coming and a lot of people asking me if Charlie was okay, not knowing, and me saying, "No, he's dead." And then it was kind of a whirlwind. I really don't actually remember the next day or two, except I knew I had to go home. And the resident director, my boss and other people on campus were like, "No, don't go, Scott. Like, we have to stay together as community. We have to work through this." But a lot of people didn't know that I had to lift him out of his noose. A lot of people didn't know how crushed I felt. And so I'm like, I have to go home. And I did. I flew home. My parents flew me home. I had to sleep in my bed. I had to hug my mom and dad. I had to pet my cat. I had to see my girlfriend. And I had to somehow escape what had just taken place. But even though it was good for me to go home for 4 or 5 days and then go back to school, it didn't. It helped and it didn't help. There was no healing at home. There was just a little bit of comfort in the middle of the trauma. And I would go through a few months of being at school in a stupor, kind of, wanting to be around people. It's such an oxymoron. Like, I wanted to be around people all the time, and yet people kept bringing up Charlie, so I wanted to be totally alone at the same time and isolate myself. It was quite the weird place to be. And then it would come around, I'd go home for Christmas and then come back to school with a lot of pain and one heck of a lot of anger. And all my anger was pointed at God. God, you brought me into this friendship with Charlie, and I loved Charlie. And we were getting to be closer and closer friends, and we were having conversations about you. And he was hurting and struggling so hard, so deep, and I didn't know that. And you didn't tell me. Why? Why didn't you tell me? And I would yell at God, I would curse at God, and I was so mad and yet so broken. And I'd signed up for a Jan term class, because at Whitworth you have a interim January term, and you could go somewhere, and Dr. Brett Webb Mitchell, who was there, took a group of us to work in the L'Arche community, and L'Arche has homes for mentally handicapped or mentally disabled adults, developmentally disabled adults. There's communities of the L'Arche community, group homes all around the world. And we went to Europe, and my friend Elisa and I went on a train up to Inverness, Scotland. Here it is, January, in Inverness, Scotland, home of Nessie and the Loch Ness. And we're in a group home, and they had workshops, and some of the staff that lived with the residents, they made candles, and some did woodworking projects. And one of the guys asked me, though, he said, hey, can you fix stuff? I'm like, I don't know, I guess so. He's like, can you paint? And I said, sure. So my experience for the next several days was not working with the residents. It was helping to paint rooms, a couple bedrooms in the upstairs of this house. And it was an old house, and the ceilings in the bedroom were like 12 feet. So I'm way up this ladder, it's by the top of it, and I've got this roller in my hand, and I'm painting this wall an ugly green color that I don't even like. And I'm just like, God, this wasn't right. This wasn't fair. What the hell are you doing with me? What is going on? Why did you not? How come, Charlie, you didn't tell me? And all these things are swirling, and I'm pouring out again. And all of a sudden, it was like a blanket of love was lowered upon me. It was like God reached out with his arms, and he just pulled me in close to his heart. And I climbed down the ladder. And I curled up in the fetal position on the floor. And I just wept. I don't even know exactly how many hours it was. 2 or 3 hours. It was way longer than I thought it was. And I just said, God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that I got so angry at you. Because I'm so confused. And I don't understand. And God said to me, Scott, and there's something really special when God uses your name. And he said, Scott, Charlie was never your responsibility. He's mine. And I said, but God, I don't know where Charlie is. I don't know if he accepted you into his heart. I don't know. It's like God cut me off and he said, Scott, Charlie is right here, holding my hand, walking with me. And I said, why? Why did he die? Why did he take his life? And he said, because the weight and the darkness, the battle with his demons and his darkness was too great. And he couldn't overcome it. And so he ended the pain the only way he knew how. But I've got him, Scott, because he's my child. What God did in a bedroom with an ugly green wall in Inverness, Scotland, I will never forget. Because God, I feel, picked me to go through the experience. Not because God's heart is that I would be wounded. But I think God somehow knew that when he healed me, I would tell you this story. And I would share with you how great of a love God would pour out on me to bring healing, to bring comfort, and take a bleeding heart and stop the flow of blood, bandage, put on a salve of compassion, and bring me to a place where there's actually no pain attached to my testimony and my story to you. Is there a weight? Yes. Is there tears? There certainly is. But the tears are because I'm so thankful that there's a God who loved me so much that he would meet me in my darkest, angriest, cussing, almost threatening God place and say, I'm not offended by any of that, Scott. I just want you to know that I love you and I'm going to heal you. And now you're going to share this with others. Those who've gone through the loss of a son, a daughter, a grandchild, an uncle, an aunt, a parent, a grandparent, a friend. People get to the place where the darkness is so deep at times, where their demons are yelling at them and beating them down so much they don't know where to go and they don't know what to do. This is the reason you and I need to not judge a person that we see struggling or hurting or making mistakes or even hurting others, but rather go to them and come alongside of them and say, I don't think this is really who you are, or I know this isn't really who you are, or what's happening? What's going on? If someone's overcome by the darkness and they exit and they take their life, please don't blame yourself. The hardest thing about suicide is we blame ourselves. And we do what I did. Why? How come? How come I couldn't help him? How come I couldn't stop him? Oftentimes, we're in a place where after it's happened, we can't do anything. If you've lost that loved one, please know they're not in hell. That's what I was taught, and that's a lie. God's love and compassion for his creation is so great, it is so powerful, it is so beautiful, that when somebody leaves, he catches them right away. In his loving arms, he wraps them up and he says, I've got you. I've got you. It's okay. Now rest and walk with me and keep walking out your journey with me without the body, in a place in the spirit. What I ask is, to those that you love, tell them. Tell everyone you love. Let them know, make sure they know how much you care about them, how much you feel for them, how much you love them. Because sometimes we don't know how bad it is for them, and we don't know what they're struggling with. You've probably seen the shirts and the memes. Everyone's struggling with something, so be kind. Yeah, be more than kind. Yes, be kind, but love. And be compassionate. Because people are going through things that you've never gone through, and they're struggling with things that I've never struggled with. So, reach out and love. Love them and be compassionate towards them the way you would want someone to love you and be compassionate towards you when you're in your darkest hour, when you're in your hardest place. Please be that bit of light and be that bit of love for them. because you just might be the voice in their life that to rescue them.